Yep.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Mr. Arden.
So, I'd like to welcome everybody for such a time as this. Today is October 25th, 2017. And as always, we like to get started with a little bit of centering. So if you're in a position to just kind of take a breath. You can close your eyes for a moment. And with every breath, we settle in. With every breath, we prepare our hearts, our minds, our consciousness. We're here to cultivate our capacities for compassion. We're here for the transcendent you. Not to just live in some lofty, faraway place, but we hear the clarion call to take action, to manifest the highest heaven right here on earth. You can hear that song now that I love. Create in us a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within. So we come here to release, to let go, to remember, to support, to ignite, to heal and transform our own individual lives and the collective consciousness, so that there is truly an empowered world for all. It is with this intent that we begin. Anything at cross purposes with this intent cannot enter into this space. It's a sacred, hallowed ground. So we get out of the way, bless everything that's happening here, and simply allow it to be. And so it is. Amen. Amen. Well, this is great. This is wonderful. Glad to have everybody here. And let's do some brief introductions. I'm so glad to see Shanti. I was thinking about you so much today. I knew that I had to text you. I have missed you. So how are you doing?
Great.
All right.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Good. Tell us where you're calling in from.
I'm calling in from Teckle, Oberwil, Winterthur in Switzerland, where the cows and the chickens and the foxes say goodnight to each other.
Great. Welcome.
No racism there.
Very good. Anybody else online or on the phone want to say hello, check in?
Hi, this is Jamie Powell.
Hi, Jamie.
Hi, I'm calling from Ashland, Oregon.
Very good. I'm glad you're able to join us.
Yeah, I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah, I met Jamie a couple of days ago at the Science and Non-Duality Conference. We had a nice lunch together. Very good.
Yeah.
Welcome. Welcome.
Very good. Thank you.
Anybody else online or on the telephone that would like to check in and say hello? I know not everybody's in a position to do that, but I want to open it up in case you can.
This is Stefan calling in. I'm on a car ride to my computer, a little bit more stable, but I'm listening for now. And I also met Reverend Deborah at the conference this weekend.
Great, glad to hear you. Glad to have you, Stefan. We also met at the Science and Non-Duality Conference that was just a little bit earlier, just a few days ago. Very good. Jean.
Hey, Rev.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
So, where are you right now?
In Budapest.
Budapest. Ah, very good. We're so glad to have you.
Good to be here.
Anybody else want to check in online or telephone? Acknowledge the people in the room here too before we get going here. So anybody want to say hello or do a quick check in here?
Hi, Jean in Budapest. I'm Callie. That's
Hey.
where my grandparents are from. Enjoy.
Awesome.
Just glad to be here. I'm Beverly.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm Margot, and I am Jean's prayer partner. And we've been praying all over the world this last couple of years.
Very good. All right. Nate, you want to say anything?
I'm Nate. I'm behind the scenes on the computer running the Zoom meeting. I'm here every night.
Great.
Thank you, Nate.
Oh, yeah, I do want to say more. You were awesome. I caught you at the live streaming.
From the
Your-
Senate conference?
Your speech was brilliant. I was really glad that we streamed. I don't know.
We live streamed.
Yeah, you like it?
Yeah, we got all of you. We didn't get all of everybody else,
Mhm.
but we got all of you, and that was the best part. So thank you.
Well, good. Well, thank you. So just as a marker here, so that people know what we're talking about, from last Wednesday, I think it was like the 19th or so, 18th and 19th of October, the 22nd, the Science and Non-Duality Conference was taking place in San Jose. And I was a plenary speaker, an afternoon plenary on Friday, the 20th, and with a follow-up panel after that. And then I had a second go round of my plenary on Sunday, a couple of days ago, the 22nd. And we did get a video of that. It's just, like with an iPhone. But I do have copies of that, and I have been just discreetly sending it around to people. So if anybody on this call or whatnot would like that, we don't have a video of the plenary or the panel, but we do have audio. It's going to take a few months before all of that gets up online, all of the videos from the conference. It's proprietary material, up there. So if you do get, my little bootleg copy, don't post it or anything. It's more for informational purposes, but they do have a number of speakers. I think something like 71. So it's going to take them a minute before they're able to get that on the website. But I am so glad to have everybody here. This is our time where we have a chance to go deep, where we have a chance to really take a look at our lives, the way that we want things to be, to rally around a call for oneness. I recognize the fact that we talk about things here sometimes that are a little emotionally tough. And normally, if this were diversity training, I spend time and kind of help people in working through their emotions. But don't always do that here or have the time to do it. I am more than happy to check in with people afterwards. So I want to say thank you, especially to those of you who have gone the distance. There have been any number of people who have participated in this over the past 9 months or so. You've been doing this?
Almost a year.
Almost a year. Yeah, because I think we started a little bit before the for the election.
Yeah.
And here in the United States. And those of you who are on the line now from out of the country are, have been here in the United States, and you know exactly what's going on here. So this time together is a time for us to do some reflection, to do some support, and to do some skills building as well. We've been spending a lot of time on the heart space. and cultivated that. Because if you don't have that, it's really hard to do, pretty much anything else. But I want to do a little check-in and move into an exercise. There was just really good vibrations at this conference that I was at. I'd say it's probably about 1,000 people, maybe a little bit more. It's held in different parts of the world throughout the year. I know they have it in Italy, a conference that's going to be coming up in Italy. Next year, it's going to be in our backyard here in Santa Cruz. It's going to the 1440 Multiversity next year. So I encourage any of you who can, to participate. But a lot of things came up in the questions that were there, and no surprise of the sort of big looming thing that most people wanted to talk about was Trump. They kept mentioning him by name, Trump or the White House or what's going on, and a fierce sense of urgency about it, with an understanding that it isn't just about here in the United States, and it isn't just about a single person, but that there is something that's rumbling, right now. And I want to do just a quick check-in with people, those of us who are here. When you think about the current state of affairs, particularly the extraordinarily influential role that the United States plays, whether you're a U.S. citizen or not, I know everybody in the phone may not, on this call may not be a U.S. citizen. But what are the things that come to mind when you think about, this is an urgent time, and there's really, now is a time to take action? What are the thoughts that go through your head when you're feeling this call right now? What is it that's feeling so urgent? Anybody want to? Yeah.
I'm feeling that it's time to impeach the president. How much longer do we have to wait? I don't want to wait till after something happens. I think it's the time to do it right now.
Anybody else, in terms of what you're feeling is an urgency of this moment? It's calling you. Yes.
Well, I'm 80 years old, and I was born just before the war, at a time when America seemed to be peaceful. We went around waving our flags, and that's good. But there was I don't think we were necessarily consciously in denial, but there was a lot of denial because people didn't really realize what was going on. And now, over the last maybe 3 decades, we're becoming more and more aware of the underbelly of what was happening in a lot of different movements. Of course, in the racial movement, in the gender movement, in sexual harassment, in general workplace oppression. And all of these things are bubbling in the pot all at one time. And part of me wants to run away and is glad I'm 80 and I won't be around much longer. But the other part of me wants to see how it plays out and wants to, even if it's just a comment on Facebook, even if it's just small thing, calling somebody on what I see happening. If I can make even a small difference in this person and that person and the other person, and if we can get around having it be being called political, what is that word being used? Politically correct.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about being politically correct.
Mm-hmm.
And if we could get past that, maybe there's a chance that we might come out on the other side of this as a more loving, inclusive, really positive world.
I'm going to ask people online, so this the same question, either on telephone or online. If you're feeling an urgency or sense of urgency, how would you describe this urgency that you're feeling?
Okay, so I'll say that what I feel is change is essential. You know, adaptation is essential. It's kind of like transform or die some days, you know, like you can't hold on to your stuff and you got to heal your old patterns. And I find it very interesting, this Me Too movement, and men also speaking up about how they will change. I mean, this is really huge. But I also feel like this whole Trump narrative dominates the mainstream news, and it just covers up so much of what's really going on. You know, it's like, come on, people. Like, he didn't invent American imperialism. And if he's out of there, there could be some other ridiculous person in the office. So I really see every country I go to, they talk about Trump as if, you know, it's just been spoon-fed to them what they're supposed to think about the state of the world in these terms. I just find that really amazing. Because, you know, we forget that, like, there's a spiritual revolution happening and people are transforming. And, like, to me, that's amazing. It's really going on. And that's my news that I want to pay attention to. But also the social justice movement is just really coming up in an interesting way. And I think there's going to be huge revelations about the pedophilia and human trafficking that's going on. And, you know, it's just really astounding. So I think a lot of what's urgent is already in motion, and it's up to us to keep perspective and use our own judgment.
Thank you, Jean. Jean's been traveling the world for the past few years. Yeah. Insight from other places. One other person. What do you see as the urgency?
I would like to add something to that.
Sure.
I think that, yeah, Shanti here.
Mm-hmm.
I think we just love to have coat hangers and names for evil.
Mm-hmm.
And in the United States, it happens to have the name Trump. I just come from a film festival where I saw 10 documentaries from other countries that proved what I felt all along, but it was kind of overshadowed with the Trump thing. There's a worldwide genocide going on and genocide that is so netted into all of the political arenas that it's almost cheap to blame the fool Trump, because that's what he is. It's a fool. He won't last. But what will last is the mastermind behind that, and that's urgency.
Mm.
And here in Switzerland, of course, we hear a lot, you know, from refugees. The refugees problem is huge with other dictators. And maybe we'll have American refugees soon, too. They're just waking up and looking from behind their hamburgers and realizing, whoops.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, sounding cynical.
That's okay.
But this is an urgency that goes through everything, and every one of our actions, every one of our votes that we do with our lives, and what we choose to support, who we choose to support, not just in that one voting action when we get to go to the urns, or, you know, now we're doing it electronically, but
Yeah.
it's still not real to me.
Mm-hmm.
Not as real as our lives, you know. So what are we doing?
Mm-hmm.
How do we make a difference in our everyday lives that counts?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I want to hear
Yeah.
from myself and you guys.
Yeah. Well, that's where we're going. Is there anybody else that wanted to chime in before we? Yeah.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Introduce yourself and tell us where you're calling in from.
I'm calling in from Aptos.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was just at the conference with you, Deb, and I think, like, just to go off of what Shanti, right, was saying.
Yes.
yeah, it feels like what I'm aware of in both my own experience and those around me is like this deep interest of change and then this like not knowing of how. And so I feel like that's where I'm so like seeking the changes in the how. And yeah, I like there's like such big situations that are occurring, like Shanti named, of just like our world falling apart in so many different ways, of people dying, of the earth dying. And I'm just constantly asking, what is this way that we can transform our dualistic nature into the united nature, right? Into like, how are we functioning as a network, right? As like a community of human beings that aren't separate. And what does that look like in the daily level? And I think like I'm noticing just in like the human psyche, there's like the leaders and then the more followers, and we need both, and that's great. And I feel like I'm kind of like stuck, or like maybe I'm at that place where confusion turns into clarity of what's the role to play, that every action I take in the way that I live in my life is informed in the change that I want to see. Yeah, so I guess like the place that feels urgent is the knowing how, is the forming the ways that we can bring others in, saying, okay, this is the intention to make change, and how do we make that change? Yeah, because I feel like, yeah, a lot of the conversation right now is knowing that we need to change.
Yes.
And then there's like this piece of how do we kind of like, there's so many humans, like how do we divide and conquer, I guess, or divide and unite, really?
Yes.
So yeah, I like I'm in the I don't know, honestly. I'm in the I don't know, but like the urgent I don't know. And it's painful for sure. Like feeling like helpless in a time that needs the most help. And I want that nature of like, I know what to do, and I don't. That's why I'm on the call, why I'm becoming part of this community. So yeah, I guess that's where I'm at.
Everybody
Get together right now. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Everybody take a breath. Take another breath. We're going to go back to some basics, because we can't move from any place other than where we are. Pain pushes until vision pulls. Pain pushes until vision pulls. Wherever we focus our attention, that's what multiplies. That's what we get more of. And it doesn't matter whether we want it or we don't want it, but the focus of our intention breathes life into it and infuses it. I'm not suggesting that we go into denial or that we act like the things that are going on are not going on. What I am here to say, though, is that we have to recalibrate. We have to recalibrate so that the first narrative out of our mouth is vision. So that the first narrative out of our mouth is vision, and that vision pulls us up. So some of you that are online here were with me at the SAND conference, the Science and Non-Duality conference, a few days ago that I referenced. And I talked about some of the organizing principles that I was working with and the points that I was expounding. One of them was that there's really no difference between the micro and the macro. The matter of substance, it's just a quantitative matter, but they aren't like really different things. And I find, from a teaching standpoint, sometimes it's good for me to go back and forth between the micro and the macro to make specific points. So I'm going to deliberately turn this conversation right now to the micro. So imagine for a moment that this is your family. Because to a certain extent, we're just like concentric circles of levels of family. From the big human family to national families and regional families, et cetera, et cetera. So let's take it down to a more microcosmic level and say this is your personal family. Not necessarily your nuclear family of birth, but the people that you're choosing to live with or to be with, to share your lives with. You can contextualize this in however you want to contextualize it, as your significant others or your siblings, your offspring, your parents, however you want to, look at this. But you can see that you're in crises. You can see that there are the behaviors that are going on with each of you respectively that are causing increased estrangement. And not only is there estrangement, but there's deep fear on your part that the activities of the other people who are in your family here are so bad that it will not only have long-lasting ramifications for their lives or your life personally, but that this could really, in some ways or shape or form, be the quote-unquote demise of whatever, your relationship with family. In short, they're blowing the shit up, okay? If I were to be that graphic about it. Say, whoa. So what is our level of engagement? It's my kid, it's my significant other. If I'm coming from the standpoint of what in the world is wrong with you? How can you possibly be doing such and such a thing? Can't you see what this is going to do? You know, how can you? And I'm not going to let you get away with this. And on and on and on. I think you get the gist of the tenor and the tone of what happens here. We're not getting anywhere unless that's balanced, unless that judgment, angst, or whatever is balanced with the real vision. It says, look, I know we're going down a rabbit hole here, but I believe in us. And I believe in our potential. And I believe that we have a shot at making it. I believe that there is something valuable that's worth fighting for, even if I've got to fight you in order for us to get there. But I believe in us that much. And let me tell you what I see. What I see is that there's something beyond this. I see a world where we can really get along, where there really is enough, where, you know, whatever that is that's going on. Yeah, I know we're in some stuff right now, and I'm going to deal with that. But let me tell you what's driving me and keeping me engaged here. Somebody needs to mute your
I'm going to mute them.
Because everything is energy. Everything is energy. And if you meet the problem strictly at the level of the problem, you get more into a spiral down. More into a spiral down. And you know what happens whenever we're doing all of our work on the victim, villain, hero triangle? That the more that I villainize you, the more you feel victimized by me. And all of these people who are doing all these dastardly things that we're talking about, in their minds, they think they're doing some kind of self-protection. In their minds, there's something that they're trying to stay off. And I love the way that Marianne Williamson put it one time. She said, between couples, every argument is a race to the spot of victim. That every argument is a race to the spot of victim. It's not to say that any of the facts that we just put out are not true. But I know what creates change. What creates change is motivation. What creates change is inspiration. Pain pushes until vision pulls. And when our rally cry is pain exclusively, then we get caught up in the energetic vortex of that, and we become hypnotized and mesmerized by it. So that answer to the question of, like, what is it that we do? The first thing that we have to do is change our conversation. It's change our narrative. Is recalibrate our vibration so that we're starting the conversations at a different level. Once again, if we look at this at the micro level, and let's say we're not looking at it as some big world global problem, but there's just something in my community, something in my neighborhood, something in my job or whatnot. If I approach you with doom and gloom, we're probably not going to come up with an answer. But if you can see, I'm willing to do something else. I don't even know what it is. But I'm just going to call a meeting, like everybody that thinks that we can do better, show up. What does your do better look like? Well, here's what my do better looks like. Maybe between all the sharings of what our do betters might look like, perhaps something is sparked there to start moving in that direction. This seems overly simplistic, and I apologize if it seems overly simplistic. It's something that we know, but it becomes so difficult to put into practice when we're just over the top with angst and anxiety. But can you have an appreciation for how critical of a step this is that we cannot skip? So we're going to do like a real quick do-over. Okay? A real quick do-over. And when I do this do-over, what I'll do is I force myself, like I did just then, to say, how would I tell the story not on the triangle? How would I tell the story if I was off the victim, villain, hero triangle? That doesn't mean anybody gets off the hook, but that construct, that doesn't mean people don't get victimized and all the rest of that. But when we see them exclusively as victims, then we can't get anywhere. You know, I contend if we were to look at world hunger or something, I had an interesting conversation at the SAND conference. And I was talking to a couple of people. I think one guy was from Italy, and I think the other was from Israel. And we were having this conversation about Africa. and this work that they were wanting to do, with Africa. And I said to him, you know what? We need to change the narrative about Africa and all these places as these quote unquote third world countries, these undeveloped, kind of unaided. What's happening here is that these were kingdoms. These were countries that had a lot of wealth. They got ripped off. I said, we need to talk about reparations. We need to talk about a debt that most of Western society owes to the continent of Africa. We need to talk about restoration. Mm-hmm. And can you feel how that's a different conversation than just this kind of, they're poor and they're like, yeah, they're poor and yeah, but they were victimized, but we don't have to look at them as just victims. These are empowered people that need equality. They need some fairness. They need some justice in how they're treated. They're already equal, but we haven't been acting that way. So the shift in the narrative makes a big difference in how we show up and who we attract to us to do the work with us. Is it making sense? Okay. Any comments or feedback? Will we do some either quick do-overs, or those of you who didn't say it before? How would you state the urgency of this moment and what's calling you to it to take action from a vision standpoint as well? Like balance the comment. Who wants to go for it?
You need to unmute yourself if you're going to speak. Or I can unmute you if you raise your hand.
I was going to say this before from an urgency standpoint is that, and what you're saying about the family thing really rings true, because in my family, it is a direct experience of them adopting these thought patterns that are associated with the current president and the associated regime. And so that's broken things up. So now after this weekend, the urgency in my heart is to repair those relationships and repair those relationships with everybody who I kind of just let drift away during the election cycle. Because I had another friend, started messaging me on Facebook, who we've been at each other's throats in a playful way while acknowledging our friendship the whole way. He said something a year ago. He said, you know what, Stefan, America needs the KKK back. And I was like, what are you saying? Where are you getting this from? And he's an Italian American. I don't think he understands the relationship of the KKK to Catholics. But just yesterday, he started messaging me, and he's like de-emphasizing his alignment to the Republican Party and saying he's an independent and how this has all gone too far and this is tearing the country apart. And so I think that this ideology has been hanging up there, and people are moving away from it. And so those relationships establishing to re-engage them into the conversation of like what you said, like we have to do the work so that I'm able to listen to what their grievances were that put them in the victimization place so that I can actually hear that. The one other aspect of that I would say is that as a progressive or as someone on, who might be aligned left, one of the things that happened in the election cycle is the mentorship and the eldership from people who have been in this fight for many generations. And those of us who are young progressives, that connection wasn't really there. And so a lot of the wisdom and strategy and understanding about how to move through this, that memory wasn't established in our community. So I feel it's urgent now to be building those connections so that when this, comes around again, we're moving as a collective instead of as kind of like, no, it's like this, even in the people that are actually more or less aligned. And so, yeah, that's what's up for me.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Anybody else want to take a shot at the reframe? Shanti?
Add to that one. It's great to have a common enemy. Unites us. There's power in that. I think a lot of the bickering will fall away as the emergency rises.
And therein is part of the problem. You know, another organizing principle is that the consciousness that obtains sustains. The consciousness that obtains sustains. So if all of the bonding and the urge to work together is on the pain and on the common enemy, then you really can't progress. Because theoretically, the goal is to get to the point where you're not an enemy with this group anymore. You want to stop whatever that is, that's the oppositional, conflictual. You don't want that happening anymore. You don't want them in the position of being an enemy anymore. But if not only our organizing, but our sense of camaraderie and loyalty and relationship to each other is fundamentally built around the common enemy, there's no place to go but to keep refueling that drama, because any move towards progress, any move towards actually healing and shifting the dynamics is seen as going off course at the least, or betrayal, you know, at the most. So we box ourselves in. And once again, it's the same thing on the micro level as it is on the macro level. We see these same kinds of things play out. Yes, it's really sexy to rally around the common villain. And I'm not even saying that that isn't a necessary point. I say that pain pushes until vision pulls. And I find that too often we submit in the pain to the exclusion of even being able to visualize being on the other side. That what we're looking at is so daunting that we can't even begin to imagine it. And I don't know how they did it. I have no idea of what techniques that they actually used beyond prayer and music and singing and a deep ancestral soul connection. With that side of my ancestry, that is of African descent, I'm part of that African diaspora, I can't even begin to imagine what it was like to have been enslaved here in the United States. And in spite of that enslavement, to still keep a real profound vision of freedom. Of it being some other kind of way, where that vision of freedom was palpable. They could taste it, they could feel it, they could live it. That's where they were living in their minds. And I can't say this enough, that wherever that is that you want to go, you have to live it. You have to believe it. It can't be some kind of wishy-washy, maybe someday it could happen, whether we're talking about you going into recovery and getting over addictions, whether we're talking about something global, something in your family, that the not only the reality, but a sense of the inevitability of it. That it can't not happen. That it has to be. Why? And I'm going to switch in another organizing point here. Because what we're not asking for is change. What we're asking for is what's natural and right to reveal itself and just be. I cannot emphasize that enough. when we're just looking for change and we want it to change, we're starting with the status quo as a given. We're starting with the status quo as the fact, as the way that it is, as opposed to an aberration or an aberration. That this really isn't even the way that it's supposed to be. How did we get off track? See, those slaves weren't looking for something new in terms of freedom. In their minds, they knew that this slavery wasn't right. In their minds, they knew that they were born free and equal. Even though they may not have ever experienced that in their life, that was their starting point. Can you feel the difference here? That we have to start with the starting point of economic justice, with the starting point of what we think is natural, of environmental sustainability, of a planet that really does work if you don't mess with it. And our rootedness in that is so strong that we are unwavering as to anything else being possible on a permanent basis. I don't care how far things have gone awry. This isn't the way that it is. And when we keep rallying around the way that it is, from a more natural, systemic, interconnected, holistic, sacred standpoint, there's synergy that happens of our efforts and a recalibration that pulls us all up, that is empowering in a way that it's not when we're feeling small, victimized, and oppressed by everything. The possibilities of the actions that can be taken won't show up then. We won't even be able to see the potential. We won't be able to see what strategies might be engaged if we don't rise up in a more transcendent awareness that isn't as mentally colonized, it's not as shackled in our thinking. We can't see something else when we're still in it. It's like Einstein's, that you can't solve the problem with the consciousness that created it. We can't duke it out with the devil, so to speak. We have to be willing to come from another place. Is this making sense?
No, it's not. Not to me.
Okay.
I need to talk more about that. I don't understand
Okay.
where I'm going. I just wanted to say that.
Okay. Then I want to come back to that. Any other comments about that? There was a young man. Yes, you had been trying to get in the conversation. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm Dora, by the way. I mean, I think you've kind of covered a lot of what I had in mind. But yeah, just again, of like this, something that I've been thinking a lot about again is how do we really see the humanity in everyone, and also just see, like you said before, that it's like changing that mindset of really changing that mindset of like need change, of like needing to change something, or seeing like, oh wait, actually nature knows what it's doing. Actually, like these cultures in Africa, were kingdoms, had so much richness to offer us, so much wisdom, so much, and not again of like, oh, we need to help help them, but it's like, no, we need to learn, you know, we need to witness and see of like, because again, the help is the inequality of like, oh, but it's like, no, we're equal, that we have something to learn as well, and that we don't know the answers, and like again, like this humble humility of like, we don't know what is right. Us, you know, like anything that we think is good can actually not be useful, and just remembering that we don't. But if we engage in conversation of like what is needed, like, and see every other person, the humanity in them, even within a Trump supporter or someone that's living on the streets, you know, of like what, not assuming that we know what is needed, but why are, you know, like, where is your pain? Where is your suffering? What is your like wisdom? What are you curious about? And how do we come to curiosity? Like every ecosystem, how do we come to curiosity with everyone we meet? And that's kind of just something that I've been, meditating on.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. And I want to answer your question. And I'm glad for that word ecosystem, because that's essentially what I'm trying to get to, is that if we get out of our mechanistic way of thinking, where everything's mechanical, and you find out what's wrong, and you analyze that, and you tweak that, and it's all on us to kind of figure out how to fix it, because it's broken. And I think if we really use our spiritual model of healing, saying that underneath it all, there's a pattern that's perfect, whole, and complete. I don't care how much cancer's in your body. I don't care how much cancer's in society. Like, I don't care all of the diseases and the everything else that's going on. Underneath it, there's a pattern of health and wholeness that needs to come out, that has to be revealed. Not created, but unleashed. But it can't be unleashed until we fully acknowledge it, until we fully embrace it, and until we acknowledge it as greater than the disease. That the health, no matter how dormant or latent or whatever that is that might be within us, no matter how rampant the illness or whatever it is that we're going through, catastrophe seems to be, when we name that the reality, when we name that the big thing, when we name that our starting point, and we're trying to get rid of it or change from it, it's like a sinking ship. If you're trying to like get rid of your cancer, it's like a sinking ship. If you're trying to get rid of your addiction, it's like a sinking ship. It isn't until there's something comes within you that says, you know what? There's something within me that's more than a drunkard. There's something within me that's more than an addict. There's something within me that's more than just somebody who's been abused. There's something within me that's good, and it's whole, and it's complete, and I am going to give it my consent. And as I give it my consent, it takes up more space. As I give it my consent, it starts to point me in the direction of where I need to go. And it must be real to us. We must do our affirmations, through our meditations, through whatever, vision boards, pictures, conversations, like whatever it is that you have to do to stimulate the inner feeling of this vision as being already the way that it is. And your inner something knows that. Your inner something knows it. Okay? Does this make a little more sense?
Can I ask something? With what it is that I'm doing. I mean,
Okay.
try to use that as an example.
Okay. I don't know exactly what you feel. I know what comes up a lot at moments like this. What comes up at moments like this is I know what I see. And I really have a hard time getting beyond what I see. And that what I see kind of eclipses anything else. That my attention is so riveted on what I see that it becomes quite difficult for me to even perceive of anything else, let alone declare anything else other than this is real. Does that feel?
That feels what's going on.
Okay.
With me.
All right.
With me. And I know that we are one. I know that I pray. I just can't get there. I can't get to there's gotta be a better way. God makes a way out of no way. And there's gotta be a better answer to what's going on right now. This can't be what is intended for us.
Yes. And all I'm suggesting is that take that out of being a question into a declaration.
That there is a better way.
Yes. Not, there's got to be like a needle in a haystack.
No, bigger than that.
But there is. There is. This is where we get into some basic principles, and you hear me talk about this sometimes. That idea of supply and demand. We think about that as an economic principle, but it's a spiritual principle. Supply and demand. That whatever you put enough effort and energy and thought into, it manifests. It manifests. So you don't have to know what it looks like. This is the good part. Everything is energy. You have no idea of the form that it will take. The answers to some of these things are going to take forms that we can't even imagine, because it's going to be so far off the bell curve of anything that we have seen before. So unusual, so different. But it's the energetic possibility of it that will make it manifest. You can't get stuck on how it's going to happen. When you're in active addiction, you have no idea how you ever get clean and sober. None. None. And even if there's a roadmap that says, here, you're going to go to this program and that program, and it is so daunting. The thought of being able to make it on the other side, it's mind-blowing. But what happens when you go to those meetings is you are around other people who see you on the other side. See? You're around other people who have demonstrated the possibility of the freedom beyond the addiction. You surround yourself with people who won't collude with you in the impossible story. No matter if that's been your whole entire life experience, even from growing up. And it's like that. It's as though we need one big ass recovery program. In your deepest intent, my second volume of your deepest intent, it actually says that. Like the last letter even says that and names it as that. This is America's recovery program. Like we need to go into recovery. No, I'm really serious.
Yeah.
It's like we need a huge, we are addicted to power. We are addicted to all of these, to greed and to materialism and all the rest of it. And we need like this huge 12-step program. But in those programs, there's some accountability where you're leaning on each other for a vision of being able to get beyond it. See? A vision of being able to get beyond it. Even if you can't see it for yourself, you know you have two choices in that moment. It's like being in the car and you can turn left and go to the AA meeting where you have some new friends and people there, or you could go right and go straight to the bar and tell the story and get all into it. And all of you, drink about all your problems and all the rest of that. Same problems, same circumstances. Do you go left or do you go right?
I want to speak to that, please. So I'm Callie, and I want to talk to all of you out there. I'm an alcoholic. I'm in recovery. Okay. I had HAD. I had cancer. I don't have it anymore. She's right. Everything she said is absolutely right. I had, when I found out that I had cancer, I said, you don't belong there. You don't belong in my body. So I'm going to make sure, because I have a healthy body. I'm healthy. I'm whole and complete. Okay, the same thing, and I talked to it, and I prayed about it, and I had the vision of my health coming back, and that's exactly what happened. I'm cancer-free. Okay, the recovery, that was different. I had no desire to stop drinking, none. But I did it anyway. I just stopped on my own, and then 3 months later, I walked into my first AA meeting. Why? Damned if I know. I was curious. I wanted to find out, what is this? What's it about? How does it apply to me? And almost 8 years later, oh my God, I'm so glad I'm sober today. It's not easy. It's not easy. And more recently, I've been going through kind of like a spiritual crisis. I have a vision of the kind of world that I want to live in. And I've had it all my life. How do I manifest this? I can't do it by myself. Same thing with recovery. I can't do it alone. And I don't do it alone. There's no way I could possibly do it alone. So the crisis came about when I became overwhelmed and I realized, oh God, this is daunting. I can't. And I don't have to. But I finally got the message of pain pushes until vision whole. It took me years to really understand what that meant. I've been living it. So I gave myself an assignment and I said, all right, Callie, what does your vision look like? Push the reset button. Every morning, I pushed the reset button and held my vision in front of me. And no matter what I'm going through, I believe in us too. I totally believe in us. And I believe that we really and truly deep down care about ourselves and about each other. And that's how it is. My vision is where we care about ourselves and about each other. And I don't mean paying lip service. I mean showing it.
How long ago was the bout with cancer?
I think I was diagnosed in late April, early June, April, June, something like that.
Okay, so we're talking within the last 12 months.
Oh, yes, sooner than that. This is only October.
Okay.
This year, I was diagnosed, had a bit of surgery, took the rest into my own hands pretty much. Well, no, that's not true. I gave it to God. That's what I did.
Yeah.
I gave it to God.
Amen.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. It's very powerful. I know we used to have this conversation at the end of all of these sessions, where you would ask me, what do you, like, you came here for skills building. You know, you were disappointed that I was talking all this stuff because you wanted to know how to go out and, you know, deal with these people on the right, conservative right. And I kept saying, do your work. Do your work. Do your work. It's the things that I am talking about. It's like going to the gym. You have to do it. This reminds me of the Karate Kid. You wax on, wax off. Paint the fence, or the newer version with Jaden Smith. You know, coat up on the rack, coat down, coat up, coat down. And it seems like, you know, almost mindless kind of repetition or something. But this is where we develop the strength and the skill set to be able to do the work, to be able to do the healing, to be able to do the transformation. You don't just get in and run the race. You have to train for the marathon.
Yep.
You know, the people who did the marches, they didn't just get out there and march. You know, they were trained in how to march, you know, and what to do. And my God, the freedom fighters that went to the lunch counters and whatnot, they were like the military. They were doing it to each other. Spitting on each other and ketchup in their hair and all the rest of this kind of stuff, just so they could learn not to react when that stuff actually happened, so that they had developed the stamina and the discipline. And all I know is that this is our hope. Those of us who say we believe in oneness, who say that we believe in non-duality, we have to be the ones. It's on our backs to live it. It's on our backs to practice these principles. It's on our backs to prove it. To prove it to ourselves so deeply that we can stand in it. Because until you prove it to yourself, it's just theory. It's just theory. And it doesn't matter where we are. We all get challenges. I'm not saying that I've got this nailed down pat and I can always do it. What I can tell you is that I am committed. And when I find myself too far off track, I bring myself back. It doesn't mean I am ignorant to the evil doings or whatnot that people do. I just know that it's not evil people, that it's good people doing evil things because they don't know they're good, because they're disconnected. They don't know who they are in the spirit. They don't know who everybody else is in the spirit. And I am not going to collude with their amnesia. Somebody has to remember. Somebody has to remember. Does this make sense? Mm-hmm. Any closing comments anybody wants to make? Anybody online?
I'm just thinking something that's like coming up that actually came up in the conference. like this word healer that like people start to identify with. They're like, oh, are you a healer? You know, do you do this? And something came up through Stephen Jenkinson's conversation on death of that, like when we have something like being a healer can sound so beautiful, and yet it just feels like it's still thinking that something needs to be healed rather than knowing it's already whole. Mm-hmm. And I feel like in what you're saying of like the remembrance of the reflecting of wholeness is like just this, I'm so grateful that you that this reignited in my heart, because it felt really powerful when it was something that I understood in the conference. And just holding that in a way of like, we're not healing, right? We're not, or even like when we identify as an addict, rather than like, there's a pattern or a habitual pattern that happens, but I'm whole already. It's just such a different, it's such it feels like such a small and yet like ginormous perspective shift. So I'm just really grateful. I hear you. I needed to bring that out, but I really hear you. And just even in our language is already creating the vision.
Yes.
Our thoughts, our language, our action.
Yes. When we think of healer from a mechanistic standpoint, and think of healer like being the mechanic that's going to come in and do an intervention or something, no. I'm speaking of healer more like a midwife, like a doula, where you're not making the baby. The baby's coming, yeah. But there's also ways that we can prepare for it to make it easier and to assist with the birth. And that's what I'm saying now. We're birthing something. We're all of it. We're the mother, we're the baby, we're the doula. We're all of it. That's how it is on the spiritual journey. Because there's just oneness. We're not just one of those. We're all of it. And we need to usher it in. Good. Anybody else have any closing comments online? The phone? Okay.
Looks like.
Can you? I kind of got it, but I think I missed something there, or maybe it needs to be clarified for me. Okay. What is our wax on, wax off for?
Okay.
This week?
Yeah. So in the Karate Kid, the movie.
No, I know the analogy. I'm just I'm looking for an assignment, I guess.
Yeah. So what the assignment is in terms of this wax on, wax off, is that we're needing to train ourselves to articulate vision. We're needing to train ourselves to not just speak of how bad it is or what it is that we don't want. Okay? So that's part of it. The other part of it is to work with that so much, to live there in our mind, regardless of what's going on, that it becomes real for us. Where it's not just some theoretical construct, but where we believe it as the natural order of things that's revealing itself, as opposed to some utopia that we have to try to create. So this is a daily practice of coming back over and over and over again.
Reset button.
Yes, press the reset button. Press the reset button. Where I get off that victim, villain, hero triangle, where I remember that there is a wholeness, there's a completeness, that we're in like a human ecosystem, where the answers are already there. It's not even, it would be egotistical of me to even think that I'm going to somehow come up with the answers that are like going to save humanity. No. There's already something within us that's healing, that's regenerative. It just needs a chance. It just needs affirmation. Just needs the humility and the willingness on our part to say, I don't know, but don't let I don't know be defeat. Let it be spiritual surrender. That's not defeat. Spiritual surrender is not defeat. But I don't know, so that means I'm going to open up wide to what does know. Just because we're not in control doesn't mean things are out of control. It's this place of the deep reckoning and the realization there's something more than what meets the eye. And our daily coming back and communing with that and practicing that so we can stand in it. To be the place where we live. Then we do our action from that place. That's our wax on, wax off. Remember the movie when all of a sudden the instructor starts throwing these karate moves in him. He's in self-defense doing all of these motions that he didn't even realize were karate moves. But they were so embodied within him that under the moment of attack, it was just natural. It was innate. He was already living there. If we're not living there, then the moment we seem to be sieged or attacked, we'll be knocked off course. This is because it's inner work. I can't take you to the gym. Life will take you to the gym. All I'm saying is go. Go practice. If it is your deep intent, trust me, you will have the opportunities time and time again to keep coming back. Coming back. Listen to yourself. What are you saying? What are you affirming? What are you declaring to be true? Can somebody listen to you and tell what you stand for and not just what you stand against? Are people uplifted? Are they inspired? You know? And at the risk of sounding immodest, at the SAND conference I was at a couple of days ago, I got this roaring standing ovation. And I'm hearing from people that that's just unheard of in this particular conference. And there were so many people who came up to me. I mean, just so many people who were not only thanking me for what I was doing for their lives, but what they thought I was doing for the conference. And I thought about this. I really did. And I tried to discern what were they really saying. And this was the conclusion that I came up with. And I ran it by some people who've been there a number of years, and they thought that was an accurate assessment. What I said is that it's one thing to be informed. And all of the speakers were very informational. It's one more level up in the heart space to then be inspired. And some of those speakers were not only informative, they were inspirational. Mm-hmm. I said, but it appears that the new dimension that I brought to this conference was motivational. And they said, yes, that's it. Informed, inspired, and motivated to do something with what has inspired you. And that's what I think this moment is calling for, and that's what I am hoping that all of us are taking as part of our mantle in this process here. Even if this is your only time, that when you are looking at the work that's ahead of us, everybody's getting informed. The news, this, that, or whatever. There may be some tweak someplace or something that feels a little inspirational, a little meme here or there, somebody's talk. But to be motivated, that's the vision.
Yes.
That's the vision that pulls.
Yeah.
That's going to create the motivation. And we can all motivate each other. Even if it's just motivate each other to stay engaged. Like in a 12-step program. You just keep coming back to the meeting.
And stay in the solution.
Stay in the solution.
Stay in the solution, not in the problem.
Yeah.
In the solution.
Well, this has been very good. Anybody have a closing comment? We'll close out. Okay, what I would like, Nate, how are you going to get their information? Make sure.
Well, I was going to ask them, would you
type in it or something?
can you please put your contact information in the chat, especially your email address? That would be very helpful to me. And with your name, so I know who it is. It's going to go in the general chat. Does anyone, do you see the chat?
If you can go in the general chat and do that, because there
We
are
don't
many
have it
times that
otherwise.
that we have handouts and we're going over specific things, and I want to make sure that everybody gets that. And yeah, I'm really excited. Someone else that I met at the SAM conference is coming here in about an hour and a half to talk about possibilities and just getting all kind of feedback with so many different people from there. So I want to say thank you to my new friends and to some of the old ones that I haven't had a chance to see in a while. And Shanti, I will be in touch. Thank you.
Good. Great.
Thank you.
Dido, thank you very much.
I want to acknowledge Shanti for being just really special, a caregiver for me. She does exquisite body work. She's been like my therapist, and I've been going to her place up in the woods and getting foot reflexology and foot ionization and flotation tanks on a weekly basis for years, for several years. And, she's traveling the world now. We're traveling to Europe now.
Yeah.
So I have missed you, but I want to really acknowledge you for being one of the people that's kept me off the triangle and kept me in the oneness. I haven't seen you in months, so.
Yeah.
Thank
that one was easy. That was the micro. The macro, I'm working on it. By golly.
Stick with it, because I do want to deal with the macro as well. And your particular perspective has been extremely enlightening as one from Switzerland, and conversations that we've had about, World War II and everybody's involvement and whatnot, and not just another round of the same stuff. I think it's important. So
yeah, I'm gathering new information, but thank you for yours.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I want to say thank you to all the people in the room here. There's a basket here. They put some money into the basket. There's also something on the PayPal that has a link. Some people who do for such a time as this make donations through PayPal. I think it's PayPal me/Rev Deborah Johnson, I think it is. And appreciate that. And we always end on singing a song. It's very easy. It's a little chant. It's, I give myself permission to be all I can be. I give myself permission to live passionate and free. Give myself permission to be all I can be. Give myself permission to live passionate and free. Okay? So we're going to stand. We're going to sing out. It's a catchy little tune. You'll catch on. I give myself permission to be all I can be. I give myself permission. Permission to live passionate and free. I give myself permission to be all I can be. I give myself permission to live passionate and free. One last time. I give myself permission to be all I can be. I give myself permission to live passionate and free. And as we end everything all the time, let us take this consciousness and multiply it. All right, that's beautiful, Shanti.
Multiply it.
Multiply. All right.
Multiply.
Okay, thank you for putting your information in the chat box too so that we can stay in touch.